while there wasn't effectively a middle class in those societies, you did still have wealthier merchants
And lesser
who,
nobility. Yeah.
and lesser nobility. And they would interact with the lower classes. And then of the servants are lower class and they bring gossip. And a lot of stories do not utilize the idea of a servant gossip network the way they should.
They tried to do it in House of the Dragon and they did it badly.
They turned it into just, okay, we're killing the witnesses.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Instead of it being leveraging it. And I mean, Daemon, the reason Daemon became a threat is he was popular with his men. They put him in a place where he could actually do a lot of damage. I mean, there's stories, even in fairly modern history, in regimes like, China or Russia, well, more China, but where a figure becomes too popular with either the military or a certain branch of the intelligentsia, and so they have to go because they're becoming too powerful. They're actually threatening the government, and all this nuance really got lost in a story that just felt like Ren Fair US politics structurally.
And a lot of people get so caught up on, oh, Daemon took his underage niece to a brothel. One, underage didn't exist at that time. Stop. But two, he didn't just take her to the brothel. He took her into the city so she could actually see the people she would be ruling.
And one, like I believe you said, she wasn't considered a child. They were trying to marry her off.
Yeah.
I didn't see that scene as grooming. I saw that scene of, remember I said with the bad boy, that last gasp, don't crush my heart.
Yeah.
That was like the bachelor party, right? Like, okay, your life is about to not be your own anymore. This is the shit part of adulting. So we're going to go out and go buck wild for a night.
She also has a fear of sex. So he takes her to a place where sex is
pleasurable,
joyful. It's not just a duty.
Those scenes weren't well done. The sex scenes, the thing with taking off Kristen's armor, that was well done, but it was so weird because he's a dick bag, and I was creeped out because it wasn't really consensual, but that was well shot. At least.
Yes.
I thought there was a beauty or an elegance. Everything else was really no sizzle.
Yeah. I do wish the brothel scene had been brighter and a bit more colorful, like especially once they get to that room where it's all gray. And I'm like, the whole point is to show her the joy of this. I feel like it should have been more of a party.
And there wasn't, they were so busy showing writhing bodies that they lost the focus on the two principals. And that's an HBO tick.
Yeah. And I think one thing they were really trying to do in this one was they were trying to avoid too much sexualization. And
that's real. That's not going to happen when you got two guys banging in the background.
True. But I mean, especially with like the leads, because I mean, we got several sex scenes, but like even a lot of the sex scenes, they didn't feel as gratuitous as Game of Thrones, or as I once heard someone describe the show as like 2 camera angles away from being porn.
Well, I say HBO stands for Hey Boobs Out.
Yeah.
Or Hey Balls Out now. They're trying to be, but yeah, it is way. I remember, was it the first episode of Game of Thrones? And there's a close up on Daenerys's breast, and I'm just like, what is this doing? Like, why is the camera abusing this woman?
Yeah.
What is going on here?
I think it was last year I watched HBO's Rome.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where Augustus is called into his mother's bath and she just stands up. And the camera is just right on her. And I'm like, this could have been shot more artfully.
Yeah, it's an HBO thing. I don't get it. It's very Americanized sex.
So blah. And that was the one thing I did like about House of the Dragon is the Kristen scene. It's shot romantically.
Yes, which is a tonal problem. right? Because it's really not.
Yeah.
It's her
And
scratching an itch.
can I say how disappointing the Damon and Rhaenyra sex scene was?
So because that's the bad boy thing,
I,
right? That is supposed to be fireworks,
yeah, and
right?
that garbage lighting.
Oh, the day to night,
Like
the day for night, awful.
I I I spent how many episodes waiting for them to finally consummate, and that's what you give me?
Well, and they clearly didn't workshop that scene from. You hear a lot of stage actors or British actors complaining that in American, especially this big budget stuff, they're so worried about the green screen backgrounds and the digital dragons that they don't actually focus on the acting. And
Well,
the challenge for those actors is Matt Smith. Don't forget, the first scene's with one actress, the
yeah.
other scene is with another actress. There
And
isn't that requisite comfort.
here's the thing. So that scene at Lyanna's funeral
Yeah.
where they're all on the balcony before it goes dark,
Hmm.
that was the first scene they shot.
Oh. Oh, wow.
So that explains why there isn't the same chemistry because
Oh
like
my God. Why would they do that? And why not
so
reshoot it?
so I don't know it. Well, they said it worked because it's a lot of characters who haven't seen each other in years, which but so I'm going to assume that the pre-time jump scenes were filmed before that,
Yeah.
and that it's just that these were the first ones with like Emma Darcy and Olivia
Right.
Cook.
But I mean, that's like
That's a terrible
coming in
place to
hot.
start.
Oh my God. You can do it, but you really need to give the actors time to figure out, because they have to convey so much so quick,
Yeah,
right? And it's that same problem of when an actor doesn't seem to know what they're doing in that moment, it's a big problem.
yeah.
Because
And so I think,
sex should not be so that the audience can spank.
yeah.
Sex should be telling you something about. Sex is a great way to tell you a lot about the way two people get along with each other quickly.
And I also, now that I'm thinking about it, it's Rhaenyra should have been on top.
Well, that's the problem they always make with TV Game of Thrones. It's the same way they reversed Drogo and Daenerys.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't, that scene was a muddle, and there was no heat, there was no celebration, there was no finally, and there was no dread, there was no nothing. It was two bodies bumping.
Yeah, which is like,
And
come on.
all it really did was show Daemon's physical scars, and it shouldn't have been just about Daemon. It should have been about both of them.
Yeah, and it should have been them finally coming together and burning together the way she said.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was no burn.
No.
It just that was a real miss. And especially with how uncomfortable all the other sex in the show is. You wanted it to
You could have
be,
had this shining moment of something that was romantic and passionate and in a way wholesome.
or even something just fucking weird like the Littlefinger monologue while the two women are doing each other in the background. Like, it was a character moment where he is so friggin' used to this and over this. He so
Mm-hmm.
exists above the waist that he can just drop facts while that's going on. Right?
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, I wanted it to be romantic
I
because it's me.
I wanted it to, because as gross as it was and as compromised as it was, I really was pulling for them. I really did feel like the show set up the fact that they were right for each other, and
Yeah,
that's another non bad boy thing with Daemon, right? Because he's supposed to be so wrong in the right ways,
yeah,
and he actually didn't seem that. He actually seemed like they were well suited and they understood each other, and he wasn't going to try to stifle her the way Alicent was stifled.
yeah.
And it just, yeah, I mean, Rhaenyra is the Mary Queen of Scots in this. And that's the show doesn't seem to be embracing the fact that we all know where this ends up.
Yeah.
Like Better Call Saul as a Breaking Bad prequel really too much sometimes, but really leverages the fact we all know where these characters end up in Breaking Bad. And there's this tension of how do you start here? How do you turn into this Schlockmeister, shyster, ambulance chaser type guy, mob lawyer? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now we see it. We see the gradual fall, right?
Of course.
And it's the same problem Rings of Power has. They don't seem to know how to foreshadow and prequel. And then I play God of War, and it's like, oh my God, you understand the assignment game. And there's a game that's sort of a redeemed bad boy as well with Kratos, right? He's gone from this violent, shirtless, bedding women two at a time, screaming at the gods kind of thing to a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still got all this weight from his past life. And he's trying to deal with his own sadness and his own sense of betrayal over he had this woman he loved, life was good and simple, and he was happy for the first time in his life, and then there's all the shit she didn't tell him, and he's really the slow burn dealing with the betrayal while not letting his son see it totally. That's fucking gold, man. Like, that's mature storytelling. And why, and my question is, why are we giving things like HBO the label premium cable, where it does seem to sort of wallow around in 15-year-olds' idea of what's sexy for adults? And this video game that is something you play instead of something you just sit there and watch and you want to be transported by the story is more engaging, more real, more nuanced, and feels more human. Like it's just better storytelling from a linear narrative perspective, never mind the interactivity they have to factor in. And it just frustrates me because that game is not going to get the credit it deserves.
Yeah.
And the HBO Last of Us ad on The Last House of the Dragon made me gag too, because I'm gonna just hide when that show comes out. Like, oh no.
Yeah. It's just gonna cause a resurgence of things that
a whole lot of
hadn't
things
even fully died, but like are better left dead.
I mean, it does seem like the Last of Us 2 stuff has set up to the point that people just sort of make it a punchline and move on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't create the big culture war, but
it's going to.
I'm not sure. It may come and go and not cause much of anything, because people may just be like me and go, I'm hiding. I can't. Like, I am very glad I didn't watch Game of Thrones week to week.
Yeah.
Because I saw what was going on online with all the standing and everything like that. I would have been way too frustrated by the dumb, which is what I found with the original. I binged, like, I came into it season 4 because I was like, I don't like George R.R. Martin. I don't care. I'm not gonna get invested because I know what the story is, and I don't like his deal. And it's great that other people do. I just don't. I find him profoundly overrated. And then everybody was raving about Peter Dinklage. And they were right. And I'm like, all right. I love Peter Dinklage. I will take the plunge. And he was every bit the tragic romantic character. I mean, Tyrion's a bad boy.
Oh yeah.
He is.
He's yes.
He gets sucked up in belief, but he does have that sort of bad boy thing going on. And I don't know, I thought Tyrion was treated so terribly by the narrative. Like, I know he's this guy with no nose in the books, but they didn't make Sansa look great with how badly she treated him.
Honestly, I wanted them to get back together in the end because he was like the one guy who actually treated her decently.
And didn't push anything on her and let her be her. And I'm like, what's wrong with you, Sansa? You're just
No, they ruined Sansa.
oh well, they ruined Sansa by making her three characters and no character at the same time. Sansa became what happened to her instead of how she felt about what happened to her.
Yeah, but then at the end, turning it into, oh well, I became stronger because of it.
No, fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, but I mean, I think I said to you around episode 4 of House and the Dragon, this show does not have a whiff of authentic feminine experience in it.
No, it does not.
It just doesn't seem, and there are female writers on the show, so I don't know how this happened. Now, just because someone's a woman writer doesn't mean they're empowered or understand this aspect of womanhood, right? Yeah. But it just there doesn't seem to be a connection with any of the themes, and maybe it's just because it's so bludgeoned, and like I said, it's such an awful world that this is where I was led with the whole as House of the Dragon makes me wonder, has Hollywood just ruined the bad boy? What is Daemon transgressing against?
He's just figuring out his own life in a very cruel world.
Yeah, but I mean, Kristoff gets away with murdering people in front of everybody. Kristoff does the big murder before Daemon does.
Yeah.
Daemon doesn't transgress. Daemon is playing by the rules.
Well, I mean, most people would be like, well, he killed his wife.
That's what people do in that world. That's what they do.
He wants something. And he's like, okay, I know how I want to get this, or what I have to do to get what I want. So he does it. I admire that.
Well, and I mean, let's face it, Varys killed his wife before Daemon killed his. Oh, she was going to die anyway. Yeah, but it was the way it was done.
Yeah.
That just revolting.
Yeah. And, like I said in part 1, I mentioned that, we were talking about doing having a conversation on the bad boy. And I was like, well, why don't you watch House of the Dragon so you can see Daemon Targaryen? It was very self-serving because honestly, I just wanted your opinion on this.
Right.
And I wanted to be able to talk to you about some of these specific scenes.
And you did sit through Thor: Love and Thunder, so I thought I owed you one.
And I'll take it.
Yeah. But yeah, it really, I struggled because I'm sitting here going, where's the transgression? He is a man with a limited number of choices. Mm-hmm. I don't see him breaking the rules. He is because it's the Game of Thrones. He is playing the game.
Yeah.
He's just better at it. The guy who's trying to transgress, the guy who's trying to change things is Viserys.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one not following the rules. And I mean, okay, if Alicent's sons weren't so revolting and cardboard, I could see bad boys there, but
yeah. Well, Aemond is her younger son, is the big one everyone's freaking out about.
Twirler.
And I'm just like, he looks fake to me, at least. He has this
he looks a bit like Kathy Griffin to me.
Oh my god, yes. But at first he's like, consider the debt even, mother. I got a dragon that's worth my eye. But then it's
like, you owe me an eye.
Shut up. It's been 8 years. You got the badass sapphire eye. Move on.
Yeah, that was an issue I had with the show, and that this was just, I'm gonna say it because people are like, oh, it's popular. How can you say it's amateurish writing?
It is.
That they time jump and they don't factor the time jump into the characterizations of the characters. Like 10 years go by and Rhaenyra and Alicent don't sit down and go, okay, you don't want your family to die. I don't want my family to die. This is fucked up shit. How do we do this? Which is what women would actually do in that situation.
And okay, Emma Darcy, who played adult Rhaenyra, did such an incredible job of smoothing out the rough edges.
I really was impressed by how she did that.
And like she still feels like Rhaenyra, and Emma Darcy uses they them pronouns. I'm using she her because I'm referring to the character specifically.
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing. So I'm doing
I wasn't
my best.
sure. I wasn't sure how to handle that, and I actually asked and said the character's female. If you're referring to Emma Darcy, it's they them. If you're referring to Rhaenyra Targaryen, it's she her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do my best to keep them straight. So if I mess up, it's an accident.
But we're just talking about Rhaenyra. So
yes.
You mentioned Emma Darcy there. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So they did such a good job of sanding off the rough edges on her. So it actually feels like Rhaenyra matured 10 years and she's such a good mother too.
The fact that she gave her that softness was cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's clear Rhaenyra loves her children. And part of that is because she loves Harwin Strong. And I wish we'd gotten to see more of them.
Because Rhaenyra is a woman who is legitimately loving more than one man, and every relationship is different, and she has it this is where these men belong in my life. Right. And I thought I'm so sorry the way they handled her was lie something. Those two guys were gay Ed Sheeran and gay Lin-Manuel Miranda in my head. I was just like, they're not going to be around long enough for me to bother learning their names.
The auburn hair, her husband's lover.
That's Joffrey, but what's her husband's name?
Laenor.
I knew it was an L. Yeah. Because the sister is
Lyanna.
Yeah. Can we please ease off on the Tolkien naming conventions quite so much, Martin? It's confusing. But I was really disappointed with the way they had him being basically a rake by the end, because everything landed on her, and he was the one without the discretion.
Yeah, I think what they were going for was that Joffrey was his true love. And so now he's just kind of floundering, trying to find someone else.
That was what I thought they were going to. But Joffrey was so basic that did not come across. Like, if that's someone's true love, you don't pull shit when you don't know Kristoff. Kristen, you don't know if you can trust him.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of man he is. And you do that, you dumbass.
The fact he was talking to Laenor, the fact he was telling Laenor in the first place, I'm like, shut your mouth.
It was such a gay stereotype.
And then
it was such a Queenie stereotype. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah, and then they were doing it in the banquet hall. Yeah. Do this somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then he straight up goes up to Kristen, and I'm like, oh, you're like, as they were talking, I'm like, oh, this is gonna come back to bite you because you're being incredibly stupid. Then he walks right up to Kristen, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
how are you this stupid?
I'm gonna drop a bit of a spicy take, but I've always found, even in Game of Thrones, with that the hint at the gay there, Martin's take on historical gay relationships is pretty homophobic. It is very kill your gays or bury your gays.
Yeah,
and they do not he does not seem to understand that there was a nudge and a wink, that as long as you don't make it, it's what Oscar Wilde violated. Don't make it our problem, and we won't make it yours. They were letting Oscar Wilde screw teenage boys until he got too blasé about it.
Yeah.
And then they lowered the boom, because that is what you did. That is the same thing. That guy would have been so damn careful, if he does care about this guy,
Yeah.
You know, they didn't even make it that he got drunk and he was angry and kind of jealous, because he has really nothing to be jealous about. Rhaenyra made them a sweet deal.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, you do that, you make nice with the wife.
Yeah. There's a show also on HBO, actually, The Gilded Age, from the creator
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Downton Abbey. I don't know if you've watched that one yet,
I keep
but there
meaning to, but there's something that's I don't know, there's a force field around it for some reason.
um so there's a gay character there as well, and he's trying to marry this rich girl while also keeping his lover. And
Mhm.
he's talking to the lover about it, and he's like, she's perfect, she's naive, she won't notice anything, we'll be good. And the lover is just getting so jealous, and I'm like, do you not know what world you're in? But then the lover comes in and he starts charming the girl, and it's
Yeah,
clearly a fuck you to the guy, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, this isn't gonna end well.
yeah. And that's what I don't understand. Like that whole storyline, they have one kid, make everybody happy. You couldn't do one threesome. I mean, Rhaenyra sure liked to like the whorehouse. What was going on there? Why wasn't like, oh, you tried? Like, come on, that's just not enough in this
it
world.
it,
This is a
it
major violation here. What happened?
it also shows a lack of understanding about duty and responsibility, and how much there was of that among the nobility.
And
And
how
I think,
many gay men had children before
yeah,
they came out?
yeah,
It just really, there was no nuance in that, and that was another thing that just felt like uh if they had made it so that he actually wasn't, like, he didn't produce enough sperm or
mm-hmm.
something like that, that it just wasn't happening. Okay, I mean, maybe they wouldn't know that, but it really just seemed like, oh, we did try. No, you don't understand. That just shows why that whole match was exceptionally stupid to begin with, because the families knew.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there are some clear hints that Damon is bi,
Yeah,
and that he's having a fling with one of the servants
yeah,
in Pentos. Is that where they are?
yeah. I think because his attitude was, why not?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah. So
I
it's like, I don't know.
I thought that thing with his second wife, where she knew he was in love with Rhaenyra, and it was like they were sort of okay with it, and that, I wanted to see a little bit more of that. That was sort of interesting to me. The time jumps were very ham-handed
Yeah.
and lost some of that cool. The nuanced stuff got blown through. The stuff that was really juvenile and soap opera got too much time. But it really just, the people that made the terrible decisions that caused all the problems, the show doesn't seem to understand who's really making the mistakes. And I think that's why Damon became so popular, because it really is, it marrying the heir to the freaking throne to a gay man. Like, really? You know that relationship's going to be under scrutiny of everybody. Like, marrying her to Damon would have made more sense.
Yeah.
Marrying her to a boy would have made more sense. A gay guy? That's about the worst decision you could have
Even
fucking
marrying her
made.
even marrying her to Aegon would have made more sense, like was suggested.
Yeah, like that match, they made it this political thing. But I mean, even the what's it, the Valerians, or that's
Yeah,
the
the
steel,
Valerians.
okay, even they weren't sure it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why Rhaenyra didn't think that she could confide in Rhaenys, of all people, what the deal actually was, why they let them believe their son was dead. That's weird to me. Because if
Yeah.
anyone
And
can keep her mouth shut and get what they're doing, it's Rhaenys.
And I think Leonor was actually killed in the book.
Yeah,
I
that was a weird. Yeah, okay, so I wasn't wrong about that, because at first it's like, oh wow, and then okay, there he is. I don't know, it's weird.
it's interesting because one thing I saw people complaining about online was they walked out of the barrier gaze and right into the uh black father abandoning his kids
Yeah,
cliche. And,
again
it,
and
and
again and again.
yeah, and at that point I'm like, look, you can't win either way. This
And
is
then Black Dad gets off allegedly, and the kids are shipped off to be raised by their grandmother. Like, what? They're trying, but they don't have the sensitivities to some of this so-called inclusion.
yeah.
And I thought, oh, I'm gonna say something horrible. Dave Chappelle said something funny on Saturday Night Live when he did the subtle thing. That sketch was very, very funny. That he did the House of the Dragon sketch.
I didn't watch it.
Oh
I
my
need
god.
to.
Okay, it's so spoofy, and it's a way of bringing back the old Chappelle show characters. But the lead up where he just deconstructs everything that's stupid about, so it's like, we did a chart of a family tree, so you know who everyone is. We also did a chart of everyone who's sleeping together. Ironically, it's the same as the family tree. And then they have Corliss come back, and of course is played by Dave Chappelle. And then, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your father, Mike Quaid. I'm not dead. And like a Viserys type comes out, the eye falls out, his finger falls off, and it was funny. But before he throws to the sketch, Chappelle does this thing where he says, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. I love House of the Dragon, but I don't know. The black characters, they got the blonde hair, and they're talking with those accents. I'm not sure where they're from. It kind of took me out of it. I'm like, oh, that is subversive. Because he's
Okay.
nudging the why are black people in George Martin reaction, but he's letting it go by.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was pretty shrewd. Tip of the hat. Game knows game.
There is a bit of a question because Jaehaerys, so the king before Viserys, his mother was Valyrian.
Yeah. What
But
happened
he's
there?
whiter than white. And I admit the wigs on the Valyrians, they look so fake to me.
The line, oh god, the lines in the Chappelle sketch.
Their wigs looked like yarn.
Yeah,
Like that had just been loosely felted together.
Ice-T shows up at one point as
Oh god.
light-skinned Larry, and he says, and he's got the whole Targaryen thing. It's like, you look like E.T. when they dressed him up for Halloween. And there are all these lines. It's like, cold, not kind, like cruel, man. But there were some really funny lines about, and the fact that Corliss has a black beard, but
Yeah.
the white hair, like what? And I guess they couldn't. It was going to look too strange.
Too much. Yeah.
But yeah, there was a lot of it did look very artificial.
Yeah.
Which, and you know what? I thought Corliss was one of the better characters. And
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love Corliss.
It didn't bother me after a while. I just got sort of used to that little it's that thing of Hollywood still isn't all the best with black hair.
You know what? For me, it's just a me thing because I don't like when things are changed a lot. Mm-hmm. But
the other thing Dave Chappelle said was, because my people are so comfortable on oceans and on ships, and what happens to us on ships. And I admit, I thought that when I was watching the show, and for him to go, I was like, okay, I feel better going there. Because yeah, I think a lot of us were like, they had to make them the seafaring people, but apparently Martin did toy with that.
Well, it worked. It was well cast. It helped differentiate the two families.
Oh shit, yeah.
And that was
that
very
family
much
was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Corliss was played so well. And I'm like, you know what? There's no, but they also don't make a big deal about it
But
in the
there's
show.
also a bit of a poignance with that line of history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names. And of course, we know what happens to that family.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they are clearly visually not there 150 years later.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. Because the steel survives.
Yeah.
But the family doesn't. It's the shit. Forgetting the octopus that house. You know, the one that captures the whole reek thing.
The Greyjoys?
Yeah, the Greyjoy. No, Theon
Yeah.
Greyjoy was the guy who was captured. The guy who
Yeah.
captures him. That
The Boltons?
the Boltons. Was that it? Anyway,
I know
they're the seafaring. It's a completely different family.
No. The Greyjoys are the seafaring
They're
ones.
the seafaring one. Okay. Yeah,
The
oh yeah, because then the
Boltons are
sister.
yeah, the Boltons are subject to House Stark, and their sigil is a man being flayed.
There you go. Because the Valerians are gone.
Yeah.
So I did think that I thought that was interesting because that they clearly thought about that, but the fact that they're the only group that looks different 100 years ago.
One thing that does kind of fit in that for me is also that they came from Valyrian.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, it's a different place.
Yeah.
There is possibly an explanation for why there would have been. So it's not just, oh, here's a bunch of black people right smack dab in the middle of Westeros. It's okay, they came from somewhere else. That is an explanation, and there is an explanation for how they got there. It's not just, oh, this is what modern cities look like, so this is what our medieval fantasy city looks like, with no explanation of how that would actually happen.
Yeah, in terms of the addition, I thought that was fairly well done, and Corlys did have the fatigue that family starts feeling as things go on. I thought was and Rhaenys, that actress, just does so much with so little.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's very good. And you know, the coronation scene where she like dragons, I was cheesy as fuck. But you still felt cool that she had a moment.
Yeah.
But again, you know, you power is taken. And that's why I go back to this ruining of the bad boy trope, because ultimately there's so hashtag, like you said, pop culture feminism, which is not it I think I gotta come up with a name that is more directly descriptive to what's wrong with it, because it's ultimately hopeless, right?
I mean, I've called it Tumblr feminism.
Yeah, it's that same, it's almost like the female black pill, in that it's an excuse to give up because you can never win.
And it's also just, oh, we've always been treated horribly. It also makes things out to be a lot worse than they are, I think.
Yeah. And we don't need to make it worse than it is. We don't.
Like, there are already issues, but let's actually address them and work on them rather than just pouting and throwing a fit and saying, oh, we're so unfairly treated. Okay, look, you have the opportunity to go out and actually do something. We have a lot more opportunities in the West than women in a lot of countries, so don't waste it.
Well, but also it's not a great we need Roe versus Wade metaphor when you're showing how common abortion was at the time, where, oh, sanctity of God, we value life. No, this never happens. Nudge, wink, drink the fucking tea, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that is not the own I think they were going for. And that I was irritated by that. But I mean, that scene where Daemon takes her out, and this is the problem. This is why we can't do bad boy stuff well today, because everyone Me Too's it. And that was a pretty textbook bad boy offering a temporary gateway to freedom scene.
Yes.
But because everything is so charged and everything gets so gendered, and the show is forcing you there, right? By constantly making you think about Rhaenyra's womb, it is guiding the viewer into this position. But instead of that being, he is teaching her that there is more, that you
Yes.
can do your duty but not lose yourself, which is what I took from that scene. Because again,
Exactly.
we're not playing by our world rules. We're playing by Targaryen rules.
Exactly.
Yeah. It is not, when they seriously were going to get Viserys to marry, what was she, 10?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What Daemon did was not a transgression. It was not grooming, not by the laws of that world.
And he was genuinely trying to help her, but at the same time, there is also that he sees something he wants.
I got the sense, yes, I got the sense that he was going for a life raft himself.
Yeah.
But I also got the sense that he was trying to insulate her from some of the bitterness that he had with his first marriage.
Yes.
And I do think they could have given, and I get it, I guess it was a budget thing or something like that, but they could have given more insight into that marriage. It was there. I picked it up, but the fact that so many people missed it was really disappointing to me. Because it's like I said about no, the first marriage to
Oh yeah.
the horrible woman,
Yeah.
and that was clearly somewhat punitive, that they married him off to her.
Yeah.
Because that was well below his station. You see how offended the other families are when they're not given their due.
Yeah.
But also, she's just pretty emotionally
Mean.
abusive. She's emotionally, it's not just mean. There's mean, there's moments of meanness. Alicent slapping her son.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the default ball breaking that she engages in. And I do think that because Holly was not aware of the female black pill,
Yeah.
that they're engaging in, they really don't, I don't know, there's almost this noble emasculation through
And I
Joss
think,
Whedon again that is
yeah,
bullshit, which is why they do it.
yeah. And I think this is what you're saying, but I might be wrong. But this idea that because women are treated worse, that they're allowed to treat men badly.
Yeah. And
And
people
it's,
don't see it as abuse.
yeah, and it's just a strong female character. And I'm sure
And,
that's how a lot of people see his first wife, and her just being like, oh, well, you don't like me and you've been insulting me. Because clearly someone reported back to her that Daemon said the sheep are more attractive than she is.
right.
But it's also like, you don't.
And how did that happen? Who talked? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and clearly there were issues before, but so it's like, oh, well, a woman insulting a man, that's just her being strong. No, it's still cruel, and it's still not right.
Well, and he is still the prince. There is decorum, and marrying him to her again was a torment.
Yes.
By design. That was a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, they were trying to get rid of him.
They were trying to break him.
Yeah.
And he broke back. And I am bothered by that, because I mean, that I like when there is nuance. I like when they show that because of the distances and because of the lack of communication, a lot of really stuff happened behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I always had an issue with the whole Catelyn Stark, Ned Stark thing, that he never confided in her who Jon Snow's real father was. Because
It would have saved.
why would he damage his marriage that way?
it's supposed to be, he promised his sister, but it's like it ruins so much.
Well, and your first responsibility is to your wife, sir. I'm sorry. One of the good things about Christianity is you're supposed to be one person. So tell no one doesn't mean your wife.
Yes.
So, that's stupid.
It's also one of those, the story probably wouldn't have happened the way it did.
Yeah. But that's always the problem, right? There's just so many things that would happen because it had to happen that way. Bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's
try to avoid that.
And that's why I'm trying to think of a show that actually has a really good bad boy character in a world that is, a just world. So you can, or allegedly, that idea that everything is great and then you're peeling back. I mean, The Boys does it, but it's so anti-hero that it's not. And it's almost like nerd media and like the deconstruction that started with Watchmen, and it's just gotten so out of control now. Yeah. And I mean, Alan Moore rages against us all the time. And like, oh, Alan Moore's so crazy. Like, maybe we should stop and listen to Alan Moore occasionally. Like, yeah, he is crazy, but he's not wrong. And there is just this, we are not able to subvert anymore because everybody needs to know exactly what we're supposed to think about things at any given moment. And that's a problem because you can't have a really good bad boy without subtle criticism, subtle subversion, questioning of goodness, questioning whether these things we claim are good really are. Right?
Yeah, because he has to have something to be upset about.
And that's why I thought his first wife was so brilliant. And the fact that I was one of the few people that just got that organically bothered me. Because that really is, I mean, that, and I guess nobody wants to talk about it because we're in that messy post Me Too kind of drone phase, that period after you have a migraine where you're still feeling kind of nauseous. and nobody wants to talk about the unique way that women abuse men. And so it's almost like too soon. But that's exactly what the bad boy does. The bad boy steps into that too soon phase. Questioning whether that citizen soldier 1950s masculinity was necessarily healthy, or whether it was sort of a high wire act, something that was fake. What is this doing to young men who didn't serve, who don't have that shared experience, but are expected to be forced into that just because that's keep calm and carry on. Don't talk about it. Nope. We don't talk about dad drinking and beating mom on a Saturday night. Right? Keep calm and carry on. Perfect suburban single income domestic goddess blah 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 home. Don't upset that. That was the thing that the bad boy was trying to start to peel off.
I mean, from what you're describing, it sounds to me like we're in the point where it is time for the bad boy to basically regenerate.
Yeah.
Start critiquing.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. Sorry, go on. That was clever, man. I had to go, oh, nice. Matt Smith,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Goose. Saw it. Yeah, go. Okay. Yeah.
So it is time for the bad boy to regenerate and start critiquing the system we have now.
Oh, yeah.
And to take on this, what is essentially misandry that we see a lot of now from this black pill feminism.
Yeah.
Where it's time to address that, oh, this might be a bit of a hot take. It is time to address that single motherhood isn't great for kids, I don't believe, and that there are issues that come with it. It's time to address
addressing why, right? Why?
Yes.
It's not inherently single motherhood. It's things that happen concurrent, or it is something that you see a lot, but it is not innate.
Yeah, I
right?
think it's well, we've gotten to the point where we celebrate single mothers so much, where it's like, yes, she works hard and she takes care of her kids and works 2 jobs. Great.
They kind
However,
of
I
had a
think
bad boy on Gilmore Girls, didn't they?
I didn't watch Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, I think there was that boyfriend that what's her name? Rory
Yeah.
had. Alexis Bledell's character. I do think they had a pretty like straight up bad boy on that show.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's Adam Driver on Girls, but I think we
Yeah.
all just want to forget that show
Right.
ever existed. It was terrible.
Yes, please. So I think
Yeah.
it's time for a bad boy who comes in and starts critiquing the current system we have.
Yeah, and that's what I thought the real missed opportunity was with Loki on Disney Plus. Because they came up with the clever log line of she can't trust and he can't be trusted. But can't he? He pretty much tells the truth the whole fucking time, that show, and nobody listens to him.
He follows the Jack Sparrow rule of
ish.
Yes.
I'm not telling you the facts, but I am telling you my truth. Yeah. And I was really hoping they were going to do a deconstruction of Mischief and use that villain redemption thing. And well, he was really necessary to this world. And it was so much not that. It was, oh my God, what a mess, and just torture. And he tried so hard, but not enough character study there. Really, really bad lampshaded character study, but no real depth to it because it was so hijacked by with a little love he'll change. But he does it, and is he a narcissist? It's that Moffat problem I mentioned before. I wish they had not dropped, oh, that's a narcissist. Oh, you fell in love with yourself. Oh, okay, we get it. Can we have some complexity here, please? Why would he do that? Why would someone do something so obviously bad idea? You are too much alike. It is not going to work. You are both damaged and broken and fucked up. And I don't think she even likes boys. And why would he come out to a total stranger like that? Oh, because it's him. It's safe. All right. So he wants to talk. He actually wants to confess.
Yeah.
But it doesn't go anywhere. That was a real missed opportunity there. And I'm hoping Thunderbolts maybe does more that way.
Yeah. And I've mentioned before, the story I would love to see is Loki meeting Sigyn and having her actually help him heal.
Because that's actually opposites.
Yes.
And I mean, they could do what they do in the Norse myth, which she can't actually heal him, but she can she can minimize the pain so that he can heal.
Yes. Yeah. And I know that kind of comes back to, I was railing earlier about, we need to stop perpetuating the story of the girl can fix the bad boy.
Well, that's why I made the distinction.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
So thank you. Because it's like, I realized I'm like, okay, I'm being counterintuitive here.
Because the one story we get, Sigyn, or however you pronounce her name, we get from the Norse myth is the snake venom and why there are earthquakes. Right.
Yes.
And so we don't know very much about her other than she is a loyalty goddess, and she holds the bowl over his head so he's not constantly being burned by the snake venom.
Yeah. And I've had this kind of story idea in the back of my head of this guy who just kind of wakes up in a garden and he's being tended to and his wounds healed. And, this woman who helps him deal with his trauma and everything. And I'm like, that could work for Loki and Sigyn.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I mean, let's face it, that's basically Princess Sparkle Muffin. And that's
yeah.
The problem. I'm like, that's the character right there. Right? Because it's all about Solomon's broken. Okay, you're dented, but you're kind of cute. We can be friends. Right?
Exactly. Something like that. I'm like,
yeah, and that
magic and stuff. And just
and the fact that there is the Mind Stone thing, and how, like, they did not deal with the fundamental problem there, because they sort of dropped the realization. No, they dropped the realization enough to do something about it. There is no moment there where he goes, holy shit, you mean I was forced to be this guy? There's none of that.
Yeah.
And I was going, holy shit, you forced him to be that guy? That's kind of self-aware, Marvel. Well done. But you forced him to do all that terrible shit. The golden timeline can't exist. We can't have stability unless he is always the guy who does horrible shit, loses, and has to live with the fucking guilt and shame and never being the good brother. That's a shit deal.
Yeah.
And I relate to that a lot, just because, yeah, it's when I say something right, it's, oh, you're just pretending to be based. I actually had somebody say that to me earlier. I was like, on Twitter, I'm like, what? Because it was about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. And I've been pretty consistent on my unpopular view on that one.
Oh yeah.
And base take for a change, and it's like, what are you talking about? But if I say something they agree with, I'm the enemy because I'm not a proper woman. If I don't say something they agree with, oh, it's because you're this thing. It's not me as a personality. I am just this embodiment of something they cannot stand, and therefore the enemy. And that's the black pill shit. And that's why I put it together with the female black pill. Because let's face it, women miserable uterus because men, oh, Viserys cares. I don't fucking care. Right? I don't care if Viserys cares. He's worse. He's worse. He caused all that shit. And it's ultimately just centering men's feelings. And I really think things would be better off if we didn't get so fixated on whose feelings were centered, because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Yeah. It is possible in an ensemble cast to, and Falcon and Winter Soldier did this well, and everyone's like, rah, 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 whenever I bring up the show, shut up, I like it. Sam, we get his feelings. Bucky, we get his feelings. It is about both of them. It shares. And you can do that. The Boys does it. We get inside the head of every single one of those despicable shitlords. Somehow. It's Eric Kripke. That's why. It is possible. And unfortunately, we have so much of this postmodern criticism of who is centered and whose feelings matter. And in good writing, you don't need a POV to have somebody's feelings matter, right? It isn't, the bad boy tends to be unknowable to an extent. You have to infer.
Yeah.
And I do think that we're getting too focused on what's his name? Joseph Conrad, sort of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
And all that very, very
Joseph
rigid...
Campbell.
Joseph Campbell, sorry. Yeah, different. I knew that sounded wrong. But that very, this is how character-driven story, 3 to 5 act structure. And the Japanese just go, no, we're gonna do 14 acts and we're gonna change the main character midway, and yeah, we're gonna have a bunch of naked people go in and eat dudes, and that's gonna be a whole metaphor of the other. Sure. And I do think that's why, we talked about before about men and dreaming. And I do think that's why young men are flocking to anime, young girls, but there just seems as well, but there seems to be this obsession with anime with a certain type of young man. And I do think, because I went to this great talk years ago at the Japanese Cultural Center about anime intends to displace reality, not reflect reality. Yeah. And through the displacement, people can dream. And that's the whole point. And that, I mean, all of anime is Japanese bad boy, because they're not reflecting what is. They're escaping what is, because it's so freaking rigid, right? I mean, that primetime television is 2 hours a night because nobody's home. They're all working.
Yeah. And there's the reason so many Japanese stories take place in high school is because that's the only time they get to have a life.
Yeah.
Because again, once they go to college,
before adulthood crushes their hearts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, it's all there. This is all my garbage. I mean, it's funny because I pulled a lot of this stuff out of the women's studies courses I took, but this is not what I was supposed to take from the courses. I was the bad boy in it, going, why was this woman a revolutionary figure? Well, she wasn't. She was a schizophrenic artist that put an American flag in a toilet. That's not the right answer. Then why did you ask? Because you want you to learn. This name of the course, professor, is Women, War, and Revolution. Why don't you want my essay to be a revolutionary act? This was me in women's studies. I was the Daemon Targaryen of women.
and see, this is why I think you're so dangerous and why so many people struggle with you, is because you're fairly neutral. I mean, not neutral, but it's like,
I'm the bad boy of feminism. I am. Yeah. I'm just like, fuck it. No, like,
you're not easy to categorize. You don't take the black pill on either side. You don't take the red pill. And it's like,
I don't take the blue pill either. I take my fucking pill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's what I wish more people would do, instead of just, oh, well, you have to fit a label, you have to have these categories. No, to do that is a complete defiance of the human spirit and what we are. We're not supposed to fit into a little box. We're supposed to learn some point during and after high school, oh, hey, those labels we put on each other, we're all kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And because that doesn't encompass the human experience. But I feel even in real life, people have become so crushed down, and they let themselves be sorted just into these boxes, and they don't have enough of a well-rounded experience. Like I was saying at the beginning, it's so important to know yourself and know what you like beyond just, oh, I'm a nerd, I'm this or that. Okay, but go out and explore and find what you love. And when you do that, that is when you find a fulfilling life.
Yeah. And it was interesting because reading stuff like, it's funny because it started with the second Keaton Batman film. Was it Batman Returns or something like that? But Michelle Pfeiffer had this line in it, and it was like, whose side are you on anyway? It's like, the side I'm always on, mine. Right. And I think that was that movie. Yeah. But anyway, I sort of carried that forward. And then I read the seminal works of second wave feminism, Simone de Beauvoir, which predated it, but then the Betty Friedan's A Feminine Mystique. And a lot of people don't understand what Betty Friedan was doing there, in that she wasn't saying that being a homemaker was inherently bad. The problem was that they were sending women to college,
sending them back into the house,
getting them interested in careers like journalism, like various things, and then saying, all right, you've had your fun, now go take your natural place in the world. And she wasn't advocating for the women for whom that worked. And I don't think she ever intended, because things got really away for her, and she said some horrible things about lesbians that she eventually realized were wrong. But she was just wanting to create another space for women that didn't work for.
And that's so important. And I've been saying the last couple years, I've had this thing where I say, I'm so tired of the sword woman trope.
Yeah, me too.
But it's like, I still like warrior women. I have several of them in Calidus Chronicles, some of whom are very happy in that position. But I also have, again, a very large cast and women who are happy in their dresses, and there's the ones who, it's like, they're very feminine, but they can go toe to toe with the men when it comes to politics. And some who are like, I don't want politics, just let me be over here in my corner. And so it's like, I have that variety, and I wish we saw more of that in stories. Part of why I stopped reading YA was because I picked up a book, and in the first page it was, I'm learning how to fight so I can be part of the revolution and overthrow the government. And I'm like, I closed the book and I'm like, I'm done. I've read too many of these. I don't want another girl learning how to fight.
Yeah,
because
I'm gonna save some of my ideas because I've got ideas for this, but I want to write them. But I do. I mean, Sword Girl became Bow Girl, and now we're going back to Sword Girl. And let's face it, it's all the same thing. And it's not saying anything new, and that is my issue. And I do think, because I think it's funny that we said about talking about bad boys and we landed on black pill feminism, which I think is probably going to be the takeaway. But it really is. I mean, this idea that everything is a war, the womb is the battlefield, all that stuff. No, that is something you're putting on yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. I do what I do and, dunk on turfs and make a lot of enemies among pop culture feminists and all that stuff because I want people. I got used to being the bad boy a long time ago.
You are enjoying that.
Well, it sort of clicked because when I was struggling with this, right? I'm like, no, this isn't transgressive. Oh wait, it's not the trope. It's my skewed ass perspective. This is where I have to remember that I'm the tomboy. I'm the gay uncle here. I actually said I had a meeting. It was kind of a contentious meeting that I was a production manager on this week. And I said to my buddy, he was like the talent for it. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, when we go in, is this trickster god or war god? And he grinned. And I said, war god, right? He goes, war god. And so that's what the guy got. And it was, yeah, okay. So every time they tried to go to the scope and the philosophy of the project, it's like, yeah, okay, so money, and so I literally, like, I was writing out the amount. Okay, so we're looking at $1,200. Okay, okay, we can do 1,000. Okay, 1,000's in the ballpark. And then they tried to meander away. And it was, yeah, so about that $1,000, when can we expect it? And that kind of stuff. And after the end, I said to my friend after the guy left, and I was like, holy shit, that was a white knuckle ride. And I said, was I too aggressive? He goes, no, you were just aggressive enough. And that's why I think personas and understanding roles and how to present yourself so you subvert things instead of just breaking them is so important. And we cannot do that if we are stuck in biological essentialism. And when you say our womb is our battlefield, back in my day, we'd call that essentialist.
Yeah.
Right. We are not our bodies. We are our minds. And no one is a traitor to their gender because they don't want to do the trendy war effort persona at any given time. Which is why the Winter Soldier has long, scraggly hair and eyeliner. I really want to see Bucky's makeup kit because, Lord, that's some goth right there, right? but like, that's the reason he has the long hair, right? That's the reason he's unshaven, because he's not the citizen soldier anymore. He's Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I do think that ultimately you cannot claim to be in favor of women's equality or men's rights or any of these lofty things if ultimately you do not advocate for individuals to be individual and not do what is natural, broad scope collective, but what is true to their individual natures. There is no shortcut to that. But that's, of course, the bad boy attitude.
Yeah.
That's not the good. That's not the lawful. Right. And that's the other thing. Daemon Targaryen's essentially a lawful character. He follows the rules.
Yep.
He doesn't just go around murdering people in cold blood. He kills people when he has a casus belli. He does it with relish when he can. But he doesn't step out of, and that's why, I mean, we know what happens to Kristoff if you know the main stories, but he should have been gone a long time ago.
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah. All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Okay, Song, you wrap us up. You give us the final word here, because we're getting that sound again. It hung on for us fairly well today. It gave us some grace, but yeah. Where do you want to leave this? What the final word do you want to be on this whole topic?
Like I said, I do think it's time for a regeneration of the bad boy, because in the 50s he was pointing out the flaws in the system, and we have a very different system now. And I think it would be really interesting to see the bad boy character who actually comments on that, rather than just the brooding love interest who uses his trauma to abuse the girl.
Yeah, because that's not the bad boy, that's a bad guy.
Yeah, to give the bad boy a point and a purpose. Again.
All right, awesome. So this has been Two Women Talking with me, Leanna Kersner, and Song W. Hansen. And check out It's Not Therapy Bubbles, link in the description box. We do have a men's support bubble, but also a bunch of them about artist motivation and writing story interactive narratives, all that stuff that we are offering. So check that out. And Song, you've been getting some art out on Twitter lately. I've been tweeting that. So yeah, people can check that out.
Yeah.
You say it's not very good. I really like that one with the two women. I thought it told a good story in the body language. Like, I saw what you meant about some stuff being rough, but the actual composition of it I thought was really good.
Oh yeah, Catherine and Madeline. That one came out better than I expected. So yeah, I have some new art out, and also I should promote it. So I've mentioned a few times my fantasy romance series, Calidus Chronicles, is free to read on my Ko-Fi page, and I set it up as intuitively as possible.
Is it in one chunk now instead of the episodic stuff?
No, it is still episodic, but the chapters are all linked together to just carry you through.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a problem when I did it. I mean, I'm not finished, but yeah, it's check it out. You guys know I don't read that kind of stuff, but I enjoy how Song does it. It's very dynamic, and I'll stop kissing your ass now. This is getting really awkward.
Oh, I enjoy it.
Yeah, it was like, you're such a simp, Leanna. Yeah, shut up. Sometimes it's the right call. If Daemon Targaryen can hold Rhaenyra's hand, I can do this sometimes. You guys, this has been Two Women Talking. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.